First test ride with the 2023 M1000RR competition with the Moz and Flash. Gonna happen right now. So let's get this thing started up. Alright guys, first ride. I'm always reminded about how smooth this quick shifter is. It's amazing. So the purpose of this first ride here after you do your modifications is really just to make sure nothing feels weird. Like the power should be smooth, it should go all the way to the top, all that fun stuff. So we're gonna make sure of that. And of course this is my first ride after the unlock. I did all the modifications and then I'm taking it for the first ride after the unlock. I didn't unlock it, ride it, then modify it, then ride it, which probably should have done that first, to be honest, if I'm going to tell you how to do things. So the order I would do this in is unlock the bike, make sure the bike feels good after the unlock, like powers all the way to the red line, then modify your bike and make sure it should feel really linear. It shouldn't have any big bumps in the power band or anything like that, big hiccups. If you do, there's probably something you did wrong while you're modifying the bike. But we'll see how this thing feels. Man, this shifter is so smooth on this thing. Oh yeah, no, she's good. We got power. We got an unlock. I gotta fix the RPM limiter thing. Oh man. Yeah, she's nasty. She feels great. So I'm gonna give it some good sweeps to the high end of the RPM on different loads before I take it to the dyno here. And the purpose of that is just kind of, we've never taken it to this RPM before, so I'm going to kind of do some braking up there because it's unfamiliar territory to the bike right now. And of course this bike I got no mirrors right now, so I can constantly look behind me. So Rizoma, if you're watching this, get some mirrors for this bike, please. Okay, this bike feels really good, especially on 91 pump only. This bike feels like a monster. And again, we're just on the base file. OTS means off the shelf mapping right now. So I'm going to take this bike somewhere where I can stretch its legs a little bit, do some more top end stuff, just kind of see how she feels up there. Make sure she's 100% before we take it to the dyno. It's really important to make sure this bike feels 100% before the dyno, because if it doesn't feel 100%, you're just going to waste some money at the dyno just to find out it's something real stupid that you did, probably, the user, rather than something that is wrong with the parts or wrong with the tuning itself. 99.999% of the time, that's the case. If it's something with a tuning, it's going to rear its head immediately after you flash the bike, not 100 miles later, not 2 months later, not a week later. It's something that'll happen instantly. Tuning doesn't go sour, it doesn't go stale, it doesn't go bad. It is zeros and ones, and it's changes to the bike through the software that are only going to happen right then after you flash it. The adaptations for like the closed loop tuning and stuff like that, that will happen while we're riding the bike basically, and adaptations for like knock sensors and stuff like that, I'll do it while we're on the dyno so you guys can see. I'll change the adapts, or I'll reset the adapts to the twist grip, the throttle valve, knock sensors, fueling. I'm going to start from scratch and you'll see how the bike builds power on the dyno. But it's only going to do that for the first like 4 to 6 pulls. It's going to feel a little bit slow, and then you'll see it progressively gain more and more and more power on the dyno, and eventually it'll make more power after the reset when you hit those 6 to 8 range on the dyno pulls than you would if you were just trying to push it right from stock. Because resetting the adapts really kind of gives it a good feel for the bike, for the feel for everything, resets it from scratch and says, oh, okay, this is good, this is exactly what we have to do, this is the direction we have to take it, and the bike figures it out from there. You see we got a nice cool day here, and of course the IET is doing its job. It's no longer 130 or whatever it was, now it is static at 75 degrees. Perfect, that's exactly what we want to see on this bike. The IET is matching ambient right now. That's exactly how it should be. That's exactly what we want to see from this, which means thermodynamics range means, you know, the hotter air is less dense. Less dense air means less fuel, which means less power. The colder the air is, the more dense it is. And if the air is more dense, That means we can add more fuel and get more power to this bike, right? Because we want to match a good air-fuel ratio. So that's why hot air is poor for any naturally aspirated engines. But they perform better at night, for example. Let's do sweeps to high RPM, then let it decel down by itself. Like 4th gear, it's a good pull. It's a good sweep. I don't have enough room here to stretch my legs yet. The bike does feel amazing. Yeah, the bike feels good. It's coming right up in the air again. So that tells me this thing's ready for the dyno. Oh yeah. It's making some good steam. Hey, the bike feels good. I see no issues with it right now at all. Now we'll take this thing to the dyno and see exactly what she can do.
Alright guys, here at Lee Cycle in San Diego. You can see I've got the M1000 ready to go on the dyno here, but first thing we gotta do is get rid of this front wheel arrow. 3 bolts right there, all T25, I believe T25, and Loctite goes on when you put them back on again. If you don't take those off, there's no way to get on the wheel chock, and if you do try to get on the wheel chock, it's gonna damage a lot of the front arrow. So we're gonna get that knocked out, get her on the dyno, see what she does. I forgot it's these 3 bolts plus the fender hugger bottom bolt right there. Then that whole thing comes out. And you can see the pieces right here. It's pretty robust and the carbon's pretty thick. I think I called it for the retail and just the system itself. It's like over $2,000 just for the hugger and the whole system to make this work with the bottom arrow or on the arrow for the front wheel. All right guys, as you can see, I'm ready to load in the original file right now. I've been running a tuned file. I'm gonna load the original file in and I'll show you guys how to properly do this because a lot of guys will go to the dyno and they will run the bike tuned and then immediately put it back to stock and run it again, and that is incorrect. I'm gonna show you the correct way to do this, guys. All right guys, first key on back to stock, you're gonna see it's in road mode. I'll show you guys right now, super cool. Come on. All right, see right there, road mode. Of course, it's going to be false in the engine because we're back to stock now and we don't have code deletes for some of the things or the modifications like the flapper and stuff like that. So let's go down here. Let's go into settings, vehicle settings, rider mode presentation, and we're just going to re-enable our Race Pro. That's the only one I'm going to use on here on the dyno. That's all I care about right now. Then all I got to do here is go back to mode. Bam, now we're all set there. And of course, if you're on the dyno, you want to turn the traction control off on this thing. It still may freak out in the electronics, and it still may have some weird stuff going on, maybe permanent stuff on the screen while you're on the dyno. It may start freaking out. As long as it makes the numbers cool, you can take it off the dyno, ride it for a second. Like, as soon as it rides 20 feet, all that stuff will just get off the bike. It's kind of weird, but it works. All right, let's GS911 this thing. All right, this is our GS911 tool. And as you can see, it's connected to the OBD port on the bike, and we have it running straight over to our laptop. And you can see it's saying my Wi-Fi signal strength in the cell is not great, which that's true, it's not. But without that big bar across the front there saying about the Wi-Fi signal, we're going to select vehicle. We're going to go to S series. We're going to go to K001 right here, and we're going to go to the M1000RR. And we are going to go to engine controller. And we're going to go to special functions. Adaptations right there. That's our big boy right there. So I'm gonna reset everything. Let's just reset the mixture. This is the fuel mixture. Continue. Come on. It's gonna ask me to key on, key off, or key off. And it's gonna say key on. Boom. That is done. All right, there we go, complete. It's running a little slow because of that issue we're talking about there. I'm gonna reset the knock. Oops. reset the transmission right now, actually. I cancel that really fast. I want to reset the knock sensors. That's what I want to do. So knock sensors. Continue. Off. On. Now we're going to reset the twist grip. Well, let's reset the throttle valve. That's where your throttle bodies are basically on the bike. All right, we're going to continue. You can hear it cycle. And this, guys, the throttle valve reset, you have to do if you break the bike down and you want to push on the throttle valves just to see the head. If you do that, you'll have to do that, otherwise your bike is just a giant paperweight. Now we're going to reset the twist grip, which is the throttle itself, which in some cases people have jerky downshifting or upshifting. This smooths everything out because it gives you exact throttle, and it's throttle based on that blip. So let's turn it off. Now I have to actually hold the throttle open and then close. It's going to say 100% throttle. There we go, maximum. Come on. 100%. Now close it all the way. It's going to ask me to reset it again. Perfect, we are done. We are now completed with all the adaptation reset we need. Now we reset the knock sensors, the twist grip, the throttle valve, and the fuel mixture itself. This puts it right back to stock again, where it's going to start learning from stock. And that's exactly what we want, because if you leave the tuning file on there, for example, and you try to put it back to stock instantly with just the handheld and then run it in the dyno, it's going to make almost exactly the same number. Like right on almost exactly the same number. And people go, oh, geez, I mean, the tuning file doesn't do anything for the bike. Well, that's because you didn't do it properly, didn't reset adaptations. Now, the BMW is more like a computer, and this is why this needs to be done with the GS911 tool properly. If this was a Kawasaki or a Honda or something, it wouldn't matter, honestly. But this ECU is so complex, this needs to be done in order to get an accurate reading when you go from tune to stock. And even when you go from stock to tune, I still recommend a twist grip reset and a throttle valve reset. It smooths this bike out like you wouldn't even imagine. Honestly, a lot of those people with those jerky downshifts, this is usually the resolution 99% of the time. So let's get some original tuning file numbers here. All right, guys, so we got our stock numbers here. Let's check it out. This is a 5th gear pull we have with our 23 M1000RR, and you can see 185 max power and torque 86. So not making a whole lot of power here, and you can see all these restrictions, limitations, and you can see it's just kind of like a roller coaster of a power band due to the fact that we haven't exacted the fueling on this thing yet for the modifications. This dip here is perfectly normal. That's the air box where your drops down there. We smooth that out typically. And then this falls off big. We have a restriction in 5th gear. That's right, guys, 5th gear. On the 20-22, there was no such thing as a restriction here, but this is a new thing for 23 where they like to restrict the top end of 5th gear, 4th gear, 3rd gear, 2nd gear, you know, keep going down the line here, but it's all restricted. So now we're going to tune this thing. Let's see what she does tuned. All right, tune, this thing sounds so much better. It feels so much better, even just on the dyno. I can't wait to get out and actually write it on this file. Now bear in mind guys, this is a stock OTS map. When I say OTS, that means off the shelf. It's what every other customer gets. It's the first file we threw onto this bike. Literally the first and only file we threw onto this bike. I didn't even modify the file. It looks so good. So when you hear these common misconceptions of, oh, well, you know, I mean, it's just a canned tune. Well, we utilize the stock factory widebands on this bike. And they trim the fueling so it makes a perfect tune every single time. And this is just proof to that. I mean, look at this. We're making 204 to the tire just on the first file here. 204, and we're gaining even 5-wheel torque. So we're gaining almost 20-wheel horsepower and 5-wheel torque. Those are monster numbers. The mid-range here, we picked up so much in the mid-range. Look at that right there. That's enormous right there in the mid-range. And then we've got here almost 20-wheel up top. Even here, the mid-range. I mean, this is all with our race pipe too. This isn't like I came in here and did the stock pipe and then this. This is just tuning difference right here. This is the only difference. We didn't change the red line, of course, because we don't change them on the M's. But that is ridiculous. 20-wheel horsepower right there, guys. And if you want to see second gear, you want to really laugh here. Now there is second gear. Check that out, guys. That is even more ridiculousness right there. I mean, how much we got in the mid-range here? Let's see. Come on, get the down thing right there. So let's see. It's like 65, 66 wheel torque or wheel horsepower. I mean, it's enormous. This transforms the bike completely up the top end, dealing with a whole bunch of gains too. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So second gear, fifth gear, enormous gains. And I wanted to kind of go over you guys with some misconceptions about our tuning and tuning in general. Misconception number one is dyno tuning for sure and always is better than a can tune. Not with BMWs, guys. With BMWs, we're talking about full-time closed loop. We actually make the widebands trim so the fueling is always perfect no matter where you're at. And we do that with our tuning. Stock, it will not do that. It does it some of the time. It does not do it all the time. We make it where it's full-time closed loop. And you can see right here, I mean, this is beautiful. I mean, we're making 30-wheel horsepower just up top here over the stock mapping. The stock mapping was obviously not doing so well. I mean, you can see right here, look at the restrictions. But that's the common misconception. This was the first OTS map I threw on the bike. That's it. I didn't even change the mapping after that. Didn't need it. The mapping was perfect on this bike, absolutely perfect. So that goes to show when you have a tuner that knows what they're doing, you have it right the first time, even with the can tune. Another thing that's wrong is sniffer data, guys. I see so many emails where these guys are like, oh man, my bike's making 200 wheel, or my bike's making, you know, 198, or it's making great power. The power curve is amazing, for example. And they're like, oh, but my AFR says 16. Well, that's not possible, dude. Your bike wouldn't make power like that. So a lot of the dyno tuners, people that have the actual wideband stuff, the sniffers, they're not getting accurate readings. There's a special way you got to do this, guys, to make this proper. And I'm not trying to trash dyno tuners. They obviously have their place, but I mean, they got to make sure it's done right. And I will go over this in more detail with Bren when I go to Massachusetts here. I'm going to be flying out there. We're going to go over bikes side by side and show you guys exactly where all this stuff should be and exactly why it's not important when you go to a random dyno guy and he goes, oh, your AFR is 18.0, you better get that fixed, it's going to blow up. But the power curve is perfect. So always look at the power curve. You have a nice smooth power curve, and the guy's saying it's 15, 16.0. No, it won't make this much power, and it's 15, 16.0. It's not even possible, guys. Another thing we see all the time is guys will start messing with certain parameters of the bike. They'll start adding air on the dyno to the back tire. They'll start doing some stuff, special stuff for the straps. They'll start putting a blow dryer on the weather station. You see that kind of stuff, you need to run the other way from that guy. If you see a blow dryer anywhere near a dyno, run, please, just run, get out of there. Instantly just get out of there, just forget you even saw that person. There's certain things you can do on these bikes, for example. You get them like, if you do a cold, you just do a run really fast, and let's say that's your quote-unquote stock run, and then you get it really warm, and you get it nice and hot, and the tire's swelling and everything, you can actually make it read a pretty decent number, and you see those gains. And also, I wanted to show you guys this. We call this the derp pool. This is what dyno tuners, or quote-unquote dyno tuners, will do when they want a bike to read like certain numbers. So see, I ran this whole thing. I didn't even change the barrel, nothing like that. I didn't change anything on this thing. The drum's still reading the same value, and you can see right here. I mean, right here in these peaks, those little points right there, that's where these dyno tuners are trying to make their power. So if you see a graph like this and they went through 1 through 6 gear,
It's cool for videos and stuff. We do them ourselves for like videos just because it looks cool in the dyno. But if someone's actually presenting you with a graph like this and went, oh, I went first through 6 and look at that great power number. The power number is non-existent, dude. You're just trying to inflate a number on the dyno. That's all they're trying to do, just based on the shifting, because the shifting will create these points, which will create power. So that's another thing we don't like. And one last thing, guys, here. I've seen some talk online. Some tuners are saying that there's a top-end restriction on the K66, K67 that they remove and some special feature. There is no restriction on the top end of this bike. So anyone that's telling you that, run the other way, guys. They have no idea what they're talking about. Stock, there is no top speed restriction. The only restriction you're seeing on this bike is right here. That's the top end restriction. It's not a speed restriction, it's a power restriction. That's it. So I've seen top speed restriction removal, stuff like that. There is no top speed restriction on this bike. This is the only restriction right here, just a throttle restriction we get rid of right there. And of course we fix a whole lot of other stuff on it to make it a lot more smooth and make it a lot more power, but there is no top speed restriction. Anyone tells you that, they don't know what they're talking about. And I think that's gonna do it for today, guys. Dyno tuning went very well. I'm extremely happy with this bike. I'm gonna throw some EA5 in it later. We don't really need to do it because we've done some of these bikes. We know exactly where the value is supposed to be to change that we need. So I'll throw some ED5 in here and make a video on that. And if you guys have any ideas for videos, let us know. Like if you guys have something you wanna see with this specific bike, that would be a cool video. Let us know in the comments. And I think that's gonna do it today. So I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm kinda hungry, get some lunch, and I'll see you guys in the next one.